The UK government has essentially declared war on personal digital privacy, and Apple has had to respond and make some changes. Let's talk about exactly what's happening here and how this affects you and me. My name's Josh, this is All Things Secured, and in early February 2025, the Washington Post quoted sources familiar with the situation saying that the UK government had approached Apple and demanded that they create a backdoor into their encryption so that the government could spy on the iCloud backups of its citizens. Now, under law, Apple can't talk about these kind of requests. They can't even acknowledge that these requests have been made. And of course, if you ask the UK government, they're not going to talk about this at all. So it's only because of these anonymous sources that we know about this in the first place. And because of all this secrecy, we don't know what kind of discussions took place between the UK government and Apple. We don't know how much Apple pushed back, if at all. But what we do know is that in order for Apple to operate in the UK, or any government for that matter, they have to comply with the laws of that particular country. And so they can't just say, no, we're not going to do that. Now, they could pull out of that country if they wanted to, but they have millions of users in the UK, and that would be really difficult for them to do. So instead, they made another choice. What they did is they decided we're going to pull away our ADP, or Advanced Data Protection setting, for all UK users. If you've never heard of Advanced Data Protection before, this was a setting that Apple introduced in late 2022 that allowed you to create end-to-end encryption on almost all of the data that you upload to Apple servers through iCloud. Now, there was already a lot of stuff like your health data, your iMessage, FaceTime that was end-to-end encrypted, meaning only you had the encryption key on your device. Apple did not have that. But there's other things in which you share that encryption key with Apple. It's not open and available to everybody. It's still encrypted, but you share the encryption key with Apple. And when you enabled Advanced Data Protection, or ADP, you were now taking and owning that encryption key for things like your iCloud backup, notes, photos, your voice memos, so many other things that a lot of us didn't even realize at the time we were sharing with Apple. But now you had the opportunity to take back control of that encryption and have it all end-to-end encrypted. So the agreement between the UK government and Apple, which neither of them have commented on, essentially takes away the option to turn on Advanced Data Protection for any UK citizen. And those who already have it on, it will be turned off eventually. At the end of the day, what this means is that while Apple didn't open up a backdoor to its encryption, it did capitulate a little bit to UK demands by basically saying, okay, well then we won't allow users in the UK to create full end-to-end encryption. Anything, any kind of backup that you create in iCloud, all of your photos, these can be accessed by the UK government, hopefully through some kind of legal framework, but still, it is accessible. It isn't locked down with end-to-end encryption. Now, I find this whole situation really fascinating. One of the first things that I take away is the fact that I had already been recommending to people that they turn on Advanced Data Protection if they use an iPhone or any type of Mac or Apple product. But now I have even more confidence in this, because if this is something that a government wants taken away, chances are it's because it was effective in the first place. So if you use Apple devices and you don't know what ADP is, or if you don't have it turned on, one of the first things I think you should do right now is go in and turn on Advanced Data Protection. I have a whole video talking about how you can do that. So if you need to have a step-by-step hand-holding to do that, you can watch that here, or just go into your settings and do it yourself. The second, I know a lot of people in the privacy world who have rightly pointed out that this is a slippery slope. If you have the UK government who have set this precedent, it's probably likely that we're going to see other governments in different parts of the world that are going to request the same thing. And now that Apple has shown that they're willing to take away ADP for a geographic location, chances are that's going to happen elsewhere. But what I really think this forces you and I to have to do, whether or not we live in the UK, is to think through how we divvy out the responsibilities for the storage, the encryption of our personal data. Now, I like Apple as a company, and I do believe that a lot of what they're offering is truly secure and private, but I don't want to be putting all of my security eggs in one company's basket. That's why I don't use Apple's password manager. I prefer to use Proton Pass. That's why I use iMessage, but I try to migrate a lot of my friends and family over to Signal or some other open source third-party encrypted app, because that's how I would like to communicate with people. Likewise, when it comes to cloud storage, I do use iCloud, but I prefer to keep my most sensitive documents in something like Proton Drive. And this migration of my data didn't happen overnight. It's something that took time, and it took me thinking through, how do I want to divvy up the responsibilities for my data so that I have control and I'm not trusting just one company like Apple to control it for me. Now, the steelman argument for this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, is that, all right, let's say you've got your house and the police or a government is not allowed to enter your premises without some kind of legal request that has been verified by a judge. Okay, now we can go in and we can search for whatever we need to because of an ongoing investigation. It is kind of weird to think about with our digital lives. There are certain parts that we can say, no, no matter what request you have, no matter what legal basis you have, you cannot touch this data because it is end-to-end encrypted. Again, that's not really where I come from on all of this, but that is kind of the opposing argument, at least the one that the UK government is taking. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think there's any validity to that whatsoever? As for what to do next, if you are a UK citizen, I highly suggest you start looking now into some alternatives for your data, whether that is Proton Drive, Internext, Sync.com. There are a lot of end-to-end encrypted alternatives to iCloud that you can use. It's not nearly as integrated into the Apple ecosystem as iCloud obviously is, but at least you will have some better control over your data. Now, as far as we know right now, it's not going to be easy to try to bypass these geographic restrictions. It's not like you can use a VPN or spoof your GPS data. There are so many different data points that they can pull from your devices to verify that you are in the UK. So I would just go ahead and assume that when you're in the UK, or if you're a UK user, that this ADP will be removed and there's not going to be an easy way to get around that. Now, for those of us that are outside of the UK, I would say this is a great time to start thinking about a lot of these alternatives, because it is a lot better to make this transition slowly instead of waiting until your government forces you into some kind of change that you have to make, because that's definitely not as fun. This is all yet another reminder that in our digital world today, privacy is not on by default. If you want end-to-end encryption, you're going to need to turn on advanced data protection. That's not something that just automatically gets turned on. And if you want control of your data, then you are going to have to go and move your data into a place where you control it and not put it into the hands of Apple or Google or any other big tech company. This is a big deal. And time will tell whether other governments around the world follow the lead of the UK government in making requests of companies like Apple to remove the ability to encrypt our data. But I really think that's a slippery slope. And this is just a call to all of us to take our privacy seriously, to take the data encryption and data ownership seriously. If you have any questions, or if you just want to share your own thoughts, go into the comments of this video. I'd love to hear where you land on all of this. And if you are not a follower here of All Things Secure, just subscribe to this channel. I know that you're going to like the future content that we have coming up.